At Sheer Impulse, it's not just about hair anymore. Why, they pamper you from head to toe with facials, teeth whitening, manicures and pedicures, massages, permanent makeup, and so much more. Sheer Impulse Day Spa. It's for the total you.
Good morning. My name is Rob Russell. Welcome to our kitchen here. Today, I'm going to try to prepare a couple soups for you. It's getting to be fall, and the weather's cooling off, and football games are starting to happen. So it's time for some good Texas chili con carne, and also cream of mushroom soup, which is something I've loved ever since I was a little kid. Could never get enough of cream of mushroom soup. So to start with, we're going to do a couple things real quick. First, try to keep these going at the same time. We're going to do a couple things. One, I'm going to show you the mushrooms to begin with. Here I have some portobello mushrooms that I chopped up this morning, and just to kind of show you what it started out as, here is the original product, the big portobello. And when you prepare this portobello, you really need to gill the mushroom. And by doing that, you're scraping out the gills in the mushroom, the black stuff, because it really darkens up the soup more than you want, because this is a cream of mushroom soup and you're using cream. It's a light color, so you really want that to come through as opposed to the color of the gills, which will get it blackened up a little bit. So after we degill the mushroom, lay him flat. Just going to cut him strips real quick. And we don't have to be too pretty about this since it's going in a soup. I like to take the ends off these mushrooms because they usually get a little woody sitting in the grocery store for a while. Chop them up. Just little cubes, maybe about a 1/4, 3/8 inch dice. Try to maintain that because you get them all the same size, they all cook about the same rate, and that's always a good thing to do. So we've got these. We're going to go ahead and put them in the rest of our mushrooms. I'm going to take a little olive oil, got right here, a little extra virgin olive oil. We're going to just cover these babies with olive oil a little bit. Got a little salt and pepper. Season them up. Get a little bit of foil right here so we can cover them up. We're going to put these in an oven right at about 350 degrees, and we're going to keep them covered, and we're going to have them there for about 30 minutes. Now, chili. Most chilies I grew up with came in a little aluminum foil packet. Mom had some ground beef, stirred it in the skillet. We threw that in, threw some water, maybe some tomato paste and a can of beans, and that was chili. We're going to make a different kind of chili today. This is going to be a chili con carne. Not going to have any beans in it, but it's going to be made with real chilies. And I've got some chilies here for you to look at. These are ancho chilies right here. They're ancho chili pods. You can get these in Sedalia. Just about any store in Sedalia you want, you can grab these. These ancho chilies, dried chilies, kind of a sweet chili, don't really have the major heat that you think of when you think of a jalapeno or a habanero like that. They have a little heat, but they really have more of a chili-like fruity flavor. They're really the dried form of these big poblanos. We're also going to use these. These are New Mexico green chilies. If you can't find them, it's okay to use a can of diced green chilies, but I was at the store the other day and they had a bunch of fresh chilies like this, and if you're going to make chili, the fresher the better. So we've got those all together. What we're going to start with is take these ancho chilies. I've got some hot water here. we're going to put the ancho chilies in the hot water and let them sit and steep there for a few minutes. While that's going, I'm going to show you what we did with these. I roasted these peppers last night, and roasting peppers is not a complicated process. Some people will do it on a gas stove, and they'll turn the heat up, they'll put the pepper on it, and you're just blistering the skin. What you're really doing is just charring the skin and then trying to get the water inside to steam up and separate the skin from the flesh. I put them under a broiler. Just put them in a pan, put them in a broiler, put the broiler on high. You can sit there and you can watch them char, pull them out, flip them to the other side, they'll char up. Then put them in a brown paper sack or any type of paper sack and let them steam for about 5 or 10 minutes. That'll cause the flesh and the pepper to separate from the skin. And so I've got one here to show you how we do this. I'm going to pull the end of him off. I'm going to start down. You can see how the skin just comes right off the chili. So you have the chili. After we've taken the charred skin off, take your thumb, just go right down the middle of it. See the seeds? You can pull the end right off. Little ribs come off too. Get the seeds off there. Few seeds, not that much of a problem. Just dice them up. Pick them up. I'm going to put them in there. And those are ready to go. We're next going to take some bacon and use that as our base to start our chili. Got some bacon I picked up here. Use about 6 ounces. And all we're going to do is just give this a little dice. We just dice this up, just slice it through. You can use just about any type of bacon you want. I like to use a country style bacon. I think it adds a little more flavor. I'd stay away from the flavored bacons though. The cinnamon and the pepper and all that, I'm not sure that's really going to add much flavor to the chili, but you know this isn't rocket science, so feel free to experiment and perhaps it'll be something that fits your taste buds. We're going to start the skillet, get it lit, get it moving. All right, good old cast iron works just about as well as anything else when you're cooking, and I like it for making chili. And it's also oven proof, and the thing we're going to do with this after a while is we're going to be putting this back in the oven to have it cook there for a while. So the fewer pots to clean, the happier my wife is. We're also going to put some onions in our chili, because what would chili be without onions? We've got regular old yellow sweet onion here. And I'm going to cut it what I call soup style. And that is cut them in half, like this, and then cut them in quarters this way. And then we're going to take our knife, we're going to start cutting wedges out of it. Flip them. The same thing with the other one. Nothing smells better than bacon. I don't know. Smell of bacon is just one of the best things in the world. So we get that going so it's rendering its fat a little bit. Put these babies in. Now I previously cut up about 4 cups of onions. So that's in here. We're going to add this to the pot as well. So we've got our onions cooking away. Stir them around a little bit. Get them coated with some of that good bacon grease. Starting with these bacon and onions, we're on our way to a great chili. So we're going to use a couple different cuts of meat in this chili. I like brisket to make chili. It is a good meat. It's got a little fat to it. It's got some good beef flavor, and it breaks down really tender when you cook it a long time, real slowly, and that's what we're going to do. So we've cut up about 2.5 pounds of brisket, and we've got about a ½ pound of beef short ribs that have been cut up too. And I like the short ribs because you can see, one, they have a nice amount of fat in them and some good marbling, so that means they're going to give us some good flavor. I think the bone also gives us some good flavor when we cook. So we're going to add 3 of these in here as this starts to soften, and also we've got our brisket cut up. The onions are looking good. They are starting to give off liquid, as you can see, starting to soften up a little bit. Translucent is a word I've heard some cooks use. We really want to get them to where they're starting to give off a little liquid, get soft, not be so hard as they were. Bacon's looking good. So we're going to add the brisket right straight to this. So there's the brisket. We're also going to add our short ribs. And again, we're going to season as we go. So fresh black pepper, fresh salt. We're going to stir this around to kind of coat everything up a little bit. And we're going to check back on our chilies and see how they're doing. They should have softened up, and they're starting to soften up a little bit. Put them in the hot water, see how they begin to soften, become a little easier to bend and open up. So we're going to pull them out the water here. Ancho chili, just kind of like the other ones, we can pull the top out. We're going to pull the top of the chili off the stem because we're really not concerned about eating the stem of the chili. You can let these chilies soak upwards of about 40 minutes to really soften them up if you want to. These have only been in about 5 or 6, so they're still a little brittle yet. Got the seeds inside. We're going to just dunk them real quick, get some of the seeds off of them. I've got 4 ancho chilies here, which is about right for this recipe. One of my little kitchen tools here. We're going to tear these up, put them in this little beaker. You can also do this in a blender. I just happen to have a hand blender, so that's what I'm going to use. So we've got those. To that, we're going to add some garlic. I've got about 6 cloves there. I'm going to put those babies in there. We're going to add our spices for the chili too. Give this a little bit of a cover. Help it steam a little bit. I've got here some whole cumin seed, sometimes called comino. Finding the whole seed, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. If you go to the Hispanic part of the market, you'll oftentimes find these ingredients in their whole form like we're using. So we're going to put in about a teaspoon, so I'm going to measure this out the way my grandma taught me to measure. That's about what she says is right, and a little more in case I'm wrong. We've got some Mexican oregano here. It's a little different than the oregano you might find otherwise, which is more of a Mediterranean oregano. Because this is Texas-style chili con carne, we're going to use the Mexican oregano. And again, you can find it in the Hispanic section of most grocery stores. So again, we're going to get about a teaspoon, maybe 2 out of that. Put that in. Okay. We need a teaspoon of ground coriander. There we go. And then chili powder. And I kind of want to point out a difference to you in chili powder. This is what you normally find labeled chili powder. It's not a straight type of chili in the chili powder. It's going to have, as it says on the label, chili pepper, spices, salt, and other things to make it free-flowing. So it's not a pure chili powder. So you're really adding additional ingredients to what we've added in here by using a chili powder like this. Nothing wrong with it, but you just need to understand that, because you may want to adjust your spices as you go, because you're actually putting in additional spices like garlic, cumin, oregano in a chili powder when you add it. So instead of that, we're going to use a little straight chili powder, and this is a chipotle chili powder. Chipotle chili is a smoked jalapeno. It has a smoky taste. It's going to add a smoky flavor to our chili here as well, and a little bit of heat. We're not going to use a lot of it because we don't want to run people out of the room, and I've made that mistake earlier on. So we're just a little bit shy of a teaspoon. We're going to throw that in there. When I was in college and first learning how to cook, made the mistake of making a chili so hot we used it to de-ice our stairs. So we're going to add a little of this liquid back in just to help us. A few of the seeds get in there. That's not going to be a problem, because as you see in a second, when we get down to business, there's not going to be a whole lot of concern about that. This is a hand blender, or an immersion blender. It's got a little blade on the bottom. And instead of having to put everything in a big blender, take the blender apart, clean it, put the blades and the motor and everything in and out, all you really need is this little handle. Detaches, we can go clean that, and this beaker. And we're going to start pushing down. So we have our chili mixture ready to go. Fresh chilies, garlic, oregano, spices, all ready to go. We're going to take our lid off our chili. As you can see, it's starting to look pretty good there as we get going. We're going to just put this straight in. Stir it around a little bit. Get everything mixed together. Want to put in a can of tomatoes, roasted tomatoes, and diced green chilies. Sometimes it's called Rotel, sometimes it's called roasted tomatoes and diced green chilies. But add 1 can of that. We're going to add to that our roasted green chilies that we roasted up a little earlier in here as well, so that we've got some nice fresh chili flavor on top of that. And finally to that, we're going to add a dark beer. Now, feel free to use any type of beer that you want to use in this chili. But I don't think you want to use a light beer, because I don't think it's going to have the flavor to stand up to the rest of the flavors in the chili. If you want to use Mexican beer, there are some great Mexican beers to use with this, but again, I'd stay away from the really lighter beers and go toward the more heavier, darker beers. We're going to use a dark amber bock here. Add that to the chili. Give us some more liquid. And now we're going to add some cilantro. And this is going to add a really good flavor to the chili as well. So I've just got about a handful here. We're going to put it in there. Just spread it around. It's going to go work itself down as we cook this. Won't be as stringy as you might think. Also, if you want to, you can chop it up so it's a little finer. Then we're going to put the lid on, and we're going to let it simmer for a few minutes. After we let it simmer for about 3 to 5 minutes, we're going to put it in the oven. So you can start this by preheating your oven to about 350 degrees. We're going to put the chili in for about 2 hours at 350 degrees in a covered oven-proof pot. At the end of that 2 hours, take it out. You can uncover it, cook it for another hour uncovered. Check the liquid levels. If it needs more liquid, you can add a little more beer, you can add water, you could add some stock, whatever you wanted to do. Here's this chili we made a little earlier. You can see how it works down. Now remember, you've got the bones in there, so we want to pull out all our bones from our short ribs. Ready to have some chili. Put the chili in a bowl. We're going to give you your option of how you want to add your fixings to it. I've got some fresh avocado here, and then a trio of fixings that some people might want to use. We've got some red onion, which is really good with chili. We've got some more cilantro for people who want to add a little more of that, and of course some cheese. Now we'll get on to the mushroom soup, because there's some people who just don't like chili. Got our pot here. Got our mushrooms working down there. This is a traditional mushroom soup. Cream of mushroom. And I start with a base of shallots. You can also use yellow onions again, but I like shallots. I like shallots because they have a little bit more sweeter flavor. You don't have to use garlic and onion to get the same type of flavor. They kind of fall somewhere in between, and they are a really good root vegetable to use in a soup like this. We're going to start by putting about 2 tablespoons of butter in our pot. Get ourselves some heat here. All right, I have about 2½ cups of shallots, maybe 3 here that I've chopped up. We're going to put these into the pot with the butter. Stir it around. I have a bottle of Madeira here, and we're going to use this Madeira in our soup. Madeira is a fortified wine from, of all places, the island of Madeira. It is a sweet wine. It's very good. You can get this in town. I know they have it in several stores in town, grocery, or those that sell predominantly spirits. For people who are like, well, I'm a little afraid of cooking with alcohol or wine, it's not expensive. And the alcohol cooks out if you're worried about the alcohol being in your food. What we're really looking for is the flavor that comes from the Madeira that it will add to our soup. Okay, our shallots Really starting to caramelize here, looking good. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of Madeira. We're going to stir that around, and you're not here, but this is a really great smell. Everybody's nodding their head behind the camera in the back. They can smell it. This is a really flavorful drink. And we're going to cook this down to where the liquid just about evaporates, and it's not going to take very long to do that here. We're going to add about 1 cup heavy cream. We're then going to add some chicken stock, and I'd add about 1.5 quarts of chicken stock. We're also going to add some thyme, and I've got some fresh thyme leaves here. This will go in. We'll just a little handful there and there. Now we're going to go back to our mushrooms, because it wouldn't be mushroom soup without mushrooms. As you can see, our mushrooms have been roasting a little bit. This is going to add some flavor to them that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So just scrape them right in. And we're going to stir these in. Give it a minute, bring it back to a simmer. And grab our immersion blender here in a second, and we'll get this baby finished. Our mushrooms in the soup, starting to cook. I like to thicken the soup up by putting the immersion blender in, and we can chop up some of these mushrooms. I like to leave a few of the bigger chunks. I think it makes it a little more rustic. Nice to bite into a nice big piece of mushroom. And there you go, 2 soups for the fall. A rustic mushroom soup and good chili con carne. Well, thank you for coming into my kitchen this morning. It's been fun, and keep tuning in to Who's Cooking in Sedalia. Thanks. Bye.